Hey guys, it's Bridget. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another Weirdo Wednesday, and today we're going to talk about the end of William Holden and his final days. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. Alright guys, so I put a video every day. Most are beauty related, but on Wednesdays we do true crime videos and weird little videos like this one. So, William Holden, amazing actor, one of the biggest stars of the 50s, and stars in one of my favorite movies of all time, which I'm extremely passionate about, and that is the movie Sabrina from 1954, starring William Holden, Audrey Hepburn, and my true love, Humphrey Bogart. So, if you've not seen that movie, pause it, you can come back to me later, but go watch Sabrina. It's so good. It makes me have so many feelings, and great film. If you haven't seen it, you can look it up.
Well, hello, how are you?
Well, I'm fine. How are you? And I might add, who are you?
Who am I?
Am I supposed to know?
So let's talk about William Holden. William Franklin Beadle Jr. was born on April 17th, 1918 in Illinois to two conservative parents. He grew up and was kind of like the rebellious daredevil kid who would always do stunts for his friends and just kind of show off. But when he hit 20 years old, he was signed to Paramount Pictures due to his good looks and great charisma. And he had his first starring role along Barbara Stanwyck. This was his first ever movie role, and he had the lead along an established famous actress. Now, this was his first movie role, and needless to say, he was kind of nervous. So, Barbara Stanwyck tried to calm him down, and he also had to take a few shots between sets to just kind of keep his nerves at bay. But the movie did very well for him, and he was already an established actor with that one good role. The movie is kind of interesting, and he plays a violinist who turns into a boxer, which is like a really weird story progression, but it did very well for him, and he decided to keep on going with acting, and he had many roles after that. His biggest role came in 1950 with the movie Sunset Boulevard, which cast him in such a pivotal point in his career. It was such a huge movie, it was critically acclaimed, and he had so many movies after that that did really well, along with Sabrina in 1954 and The Country Girl. Now, he was a star. He was starring alongside beauties like Grace Kelly and Audrey Hepburn, who he fell in love with, but she married Mel Ferrer instead, so that kind of broke his heart. But he was involved with a lot of beautiful actresses, and he was a gorgeous man himself. He had such a presence on the screen that I don't think people really give him credit for anymore. I think when you think William Holden, you don't think of like, wow, he was a gorgeous, charismatic, like you really felt for his characters when you saw them on the screen kind of guy. Now, what people didn't see about William Holden, or Bill Holden as he was often called, was that he was very uncomfortable with the fame, and he often drank to kind of cope with like having to go out in public or being recognized or go to the studios. When he went to film awards, he would take a couple shots just to kind of calm down his nerves. He wasn't really the celebrity type. He was a very private person, and I think the alcoholism got to him a few times in his life, not just towards the end of his life. In 1956, he was the biggest star of the year, which is a huge honor, and especially in the 50s where there were so many stars up and coming in that time period. And in 1957, he had a starring part in the movie The Bridge on the River of Kwai, which won 7 Oscars.
You make me sick with your heroics. There's a stench of death about you. You carry it in your pack like the plague. Explosives and L-pills, they go well together, don't they? And with you, it's just one thing or the other. Destroy a bridge or destroy yourself. This is just a game, this war. You and that Colonel Nicholson, you're two of a kind. Crazy with courage. For what? How to die like a gentleman. How to die by the rules. When the only important thing is how to live like a human being.
In the 1960s, he decided to calm down the acting a bit and wanted to travel the world. He went all over the world, to Africa, to Hong Kong, to Italy, and in Italy, he actually caused a car wreck, which had him charged with manslaughter. He didn't serve any jail time for it, but it still kind of hurt his reputation, and that's when he started to drink heavily. So he was drinking heavily, and he started going to AA meetings. He would be sober for a bit, but it never really stuck. And during this time, he was also doing a lot of wildlife conservation in Africa because he was all about safaris and stuff, but when it came time to doing a hunt and killing an elephant, he couldn't do it. He just loved African wildlife so much, and he spent a lot of time trying to conserve wildlife in the area. Meanwhile, he's going through his internal struggle of alcoholism. Now let's talk about the very end of his life. So this alcoholism that he had been struggling with for years had aged him so much. He did not look like he was only 63 in 1981. But in 1981, at the age of 63, he passed away. And now let's talk about why that's so strange. So on November 12th, when he was living in Santa Monica, California on Ocean Avenue at the Shorecliff Towers, number 535, which he partially owned, he was living on the 4th floor in number 43, he tripped over a rug. Doesn't sound crazy, right? Bill Holden had a blood alcohol level of 0.22 when he tripped over a throw rug and hit his forehead into a nightstand. When he hit his head into the nightstand, he left a 2 to 3 inch indentation in the object, which is like you hit it hard, full body, dead weight to leave a 2 to 3 inch indentation in the object you hit with your forehead. So he was bleeding profusely. He grabbed some Kleenex tissues and tried to stop the bleeding himself, and it wasn't working. Now, Bill could have called for help. The phone was actually there on the hook still. It had blood on it, but he didn't call for help at this time. He probably didn't realize how bad the bleeding was, and he just tried to stop the bleeding himself. He was still wearing a robe, and it looks like he tried to remove the robe and put a shirt on over his arms, and he passed away. So essentially, 15 minutes after he hit his head, he had passed away, and no one found his body for 4 days. He just kind of bled out and stayed there. He was a very private person. He didn't really talk to his neighbors. They said that he would occasionally at them, and he would be disappearing for days at a time, and he just was that kind of guy. He was divorced from his wife, so they didn't come see him. He wasn't really close with his kids, and he only had his girlfriend, Stephanie Powers, who he had last spoken to a week ago on the phone when he was acting completely normal, but he was intoxicated. So nobody found his body for 4 days. The building manager actually let himself in with a pass key, wondering what happened to Bill. He didn't see him in a few days, just out of curiosity, and they went in there to see that all the lights were off, but the TV was still on in the apartment, and they discovered using flashlights since the lights were off that Bill was dead on the floor. Now, the weird state his body was in, the weird position he was in with his arm mangled underneath him, the robe thrown on the back of him, and his one shirt sleeve on, like he was trying to put it over his head, was the reason they figured he was trying to probably get dressed. He probably maybe thought he could leave and get some help, but he didn't make it. It had been 4 days, and no one had moved his body. There were maggots and tissue separating from his body. Rigor mortis was setting in, and he was at a terrible state, because no one found him. No one even knew to look for him. He was just a very private person. Nothing was out of place in his apartment other than the rug being flipped up from where he had fallen and the laceration into the end table. The end table had left a 3-inch laceration through his forehead, which was obviously the cause of death because there was a pool of blood around him, and nothing in his apartment was out of place. There was an empty vodka bottle in the trash can, 4 beer bottles, and another partially drank bottle of vodka on the kitchen counter. So it was obviously that he was intoxicated, and when the autopsy was done with the 3-inch laceration, the blood alcohol level of 0.22, it was determined that loss of blood was the cause of death. Also, during the autopsy, they discovered that his liver was severely damaged from the years of drinking, and that if he hadn't done some weird thing like this, he could have drank himself to death. Personally, I just find it very strange that he tripped over a rug and that was it for him. That's so weird to me. I mean, we've all done weird stuff drunk. We've all fallen drunk. But none of us tripped over a rug and that was it. 15 minutes later, we're done. It's crazy to me. Bill Holden's body was cremated and his ashes were scattered at sea. He left $250,000 to his girlfriend, Stephanie Powers, who decided to take that money and create the William Holden Wildlife Foundation. And unfortunately, that's all I have for you. So he was a great actor, a very esteemed, famous actor, and somehow a throw rug was the end of him. Isn't that just crazy? That you can be the biggest star, the most famous person on earth for a while, and a throw rug. A throw rug. No, that's not the way to go. That should not have happened to him. And then no one finding your body for 4 days, so it's all deteriorated. it's just really sad. I feel like his alcoholism was probably a cry for help, and people kept leaving him in his life. Him and his wife were married for 22 years before they got divorced, and I don't know. People kept leaving his life. He was an alcoholic. People should have helped him instead of just like letting him be a grumpy old man by himself. I mean, it obviously wasn't good for him. He had some struggles. He was obviously always the rebellious daredevil type. He even talked about that, how he just loved to travel and try new things and be experimental, and like he did his own stunts for certain movies. Even when he was the biggest star, like in 1955, he did his own movie stunts that were very dangerous. To prove to a director he could do his own stunts, he even just hung out of a 15-story window just to see that he could hold his own weight up, and it's just crazy. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am so sorry this happened to him. Tell me, you guys, who your favorite classic movie stars are. I think it's pretty obvious who mine are. I have them tattooed on my back over here. But let me know who you guys really enjoy. And if you've seen the movie Sabrina, let me know your thoughts on it. Anyways, I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.